AITA for canceling my stepdaughter's wedding and taking back her car after 17 years? I am 54 years old. I work in financial consulting, and I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago essentially destroyed my family, or at least what I believed was my family. The thing is, I spent 17 years, literally 17 whole years, being a father to a girl who was not biologically mine. And in the end, they treated me as if I were invisible, as if I did not exist. And yes, I know it sounds dramatic, but wait until I tell you everything, because believe me, I am not exaggerating one bit. I met Elena when I was 37, she was 35, and her daughter Isabel was 9. We met at a professional networking event. You know, those boring corporate functions where everyone pretends to be interested in what everyone else does. And honestly, I thought she was incredible from the first moment. She was smart, funny, and had this energy that drew me in. When she told me she was a single mother, I did not care at all. I had never wanted kids of my own, but it was not a deal breaker for me either. On our third date, I met Isabel, a cute, somewhat shy girl with that curly hair that was always a mess, and I liked her right away. I do not know. I guess I thought we could be a functional family, you know? The biological father, Colin Bennett, was basically non-existent in Isabel's life. Elena told me they had separated when the girl was about 3 years old, that he paid a miserable amount of court-ordered child support that barely covered anything, and that she saw him maybe twice a year if she was lucky. Christmas and her birthday, and even that was not a sure thing. There were years he did not even show up. Elena worked part-time back then in the administration of a dental clinic. She earned enough to get by, but not much more. They were basically living paycheck to paycheck. When we started talking about moving in together after a year of dating, I was already making very good money, and I told her not to worry about finances, that I would take care of everything. And I did, honestly, for all those years. We moved into a house in a good neighborhood when Isabel was 10. And from that moment on, I was the one who paid for everything. The mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, the clothes, absolutely everything. Elena quit her job because, according to her, she wanted to focus on being a full-time mom, and I agreed. I mean, I earned enough to support the family comfortably, so I did not see the problem. I enrolled Isabel in a private school that cost around $15,000 a year. I bought her everything she needed for her extracurricular activities. I took her to her piano lessons, her soccer games, everything. On weekends, the three of us would go out, to the movies, out to eat, on vacation to the beach every summer. I never legally adopted Isabel. Elena never asked me to, and I never suggested it either. But in every practical sense, I was her father. Period. Colin kept showing up from time to time, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, always with some excuse about why he could not be more present, whether it was work, health problems, or who knows what else. Isabel would see him. They would spend a few hours together, he would buy her some cheap gift, and then he would be gone again. I never said anything negative about him in front of Isabel. Never. Because Elena asked me not to, and I respected that. Although inside, it bothered me that this guy could just appear and disappear as he pleased, while I was there every single day doing the real work of being a parent. When Isabel turned 14, she started calling me Daniel instead of just addressing me without using any title, which I thought was fine. I mean, I never asked her to call me dad or anything, but it did not bother me either. We had a good relationship, I think. She would tell me things about school, ask for help with homework, and we would watch TV series together. When she turned 16, I bought her first car. For her high school graduation, I bought her a Rolex, one of the women's models that cost about $8,000, and she started crying with excitement when she opened it. Colin was at the graduation, by the way, sitting in the bleachers like a normal dad, and anyone who did not know the situation would have had no idea that this guy had basically been absent from her life. College was another story. Isabel wanted to study marketing at a private university that cost $30,000 a year. For years. Full tuition, housing, books, everything. You do the math. It is about $120,000, more or less. Although I ended up paying around $90,000 because I managed to secure some partial scholarships. Colin did not contribute a single cent, literally, not one. When Elena mentioned it to him, he said he did not have that kind of money, that he could barely cover his own expenses. And that was that. I paid every semester on time. I never complained, never held it over Isabel's head. During college, she would come home every long weekend and on vacations, and I kept her room exactly as she left it, with all her things, her photos, her high school memories. When she graduated 3 years ago, I gave her a Mercedes-Benz C-Class, a 2021 model, which cost me $45,000. Brand new, straight from the dealership, all paid for in full. Isabel almost fainted when she saw the car in the driveway with a giant red bow on it. And Elena cried too, hugged me, and told me I was the best man in the world. I felt good that day. You know? Like all the effort, all the money, all the time was worth it because they were my family, and I loved them. It sounds cheesy, but that is how I felt. Isabel got a job at a marketing agency after graduating. She earned a decent salary for a recent grad. And although she could have moved out on her own, she decided to stay with us for another year while she saved money. I did not charge her rent, obviously. Elena was still not working, so I was still supporting the entire household. Isabel met Adrian at her job, a guy who worked in finance, came from a good family, with money. The typical guy who went to good schools and had that air of privilege you can spot from a mile away. He was polite to me, proper, but I never felt like he truly took me seriously. I always got the feeling he saw me as his girlfriend's mom's boyfriend, and that is it, not as an important father figure in Isabel's life. A year and a half ago, Isabel moved in with Adrian to an apartment downtown, and I helped her with the moving expenses. I bought her some furniture and gave her about $2,000 to have a financial cushion. We still saw each other often. We would have dinner together about once a week, and everything seemed fine. And then, 8 months ago, Adrian proposed. It was an elaborate proposal with a photographer and everything at a restaurant overlooking the ocean. When Isabel called to tell us, Elena and I were thrilled. Well, I was happy because she was happy, though inside I was already starting to wonder how they were going to handle the whole wedding issue, considering Colin was still part of the equation. The wedding planning started almost immediately. Isabel and Elena became completely obsessed. They spent hours talking about flowers, dresses, decorations, and venues. I assumed that at some point they would involve me, to talk about the budget or something, but weeks went by and nobody told me anything concrete. When I asked about it, they would give me vague answers, like, "We will tell you soon, Daniel, do not worry," or, "We have not decided on anything yet." It seemed odd, but I did not dwell on it. I guess I thought they were in the initial dream about everything phase and would later come to me to talk about the real numbers. The wedding was scheduled for 9 months after the engagement. There were going to be 350 guests at a vineyard venue that looked incredible in the photos Elena showed me. Gourmet catering, an open bar all night, a live band, fireworks at the end, all very elaborate. When I finally asked Elena how much it was all going to cost, she told me they were still looking at options, but probably between $80,000 and $100,000. I just stood there quietly, processing that figure. It is a lot of money, obviously, but it is not like I was going to let Isabel have a mediocre wedding after everything we had built together all those years. What started to bother me was that they excluded me from the planning meetings. Elena and Isabel would go together to see venues, meet with wedding planners, and do catering tastings, and they never invited me. When I asked them why they did not let me know, they would say things like, "They were just quick appointments," or "We forgot to mention it," or "This is more of a women's thing, Daniel, no offense." Every time I brought it up, Elena would tell me I was being sensitive, that they just wanted the wedding to be perfect, and that I would be in charge of the financial part, which was the most important thing. That phrase stuck with me, the financial part, which is the most important thing, as if my only role was to be a walking checkbook. And then the invitations arrived. Elena brought them home about 4 months ago, super excited to show them to me before they were sent out. They were elegant, thick ivory paper with gold lettering, very beautiful, honestly. I opened one and started to read. Elena and Colin Bennett have the honor of inviting you to the wedding of their daughter, Isabel. The first line read. I read that line 3 times, literally, because I could not believe it. Colin Bennett, the guy who had seen his daughter maybe 30 times in 17 years, was listed as the father on the invitation. And me, the one who had paid for absolutely everything, the one who had been there every single day, was nowhere to be found. Elena must have seen my face because she immediately started with, "Daniel, legally Colin is her father." It was just simpler. I said, "Simpler?" After 17 years of supporting both of you, of paying for every single thing, I do not even deserve a mention on the wedding invitation of the girl I raised. She got defensive, told me not to be dramatic, that everyone knew the role I had played in Isabel's life, and that I did not need a piece of paper to validate it. Isabel was there too and said nothing, absolutely nothing. She just stared at her phone while her mom and I argued. That hurt more than anything else, you know? That she did not even try to defend me or explain why they had made that decision. But well, I swallowed my frustration again because I did not want to ruin this important moment for Isabel. I thought, okay, the invitation does not include me. It is stupid, but I can live with it if the rest of the wedding acknowledges my role. A grave mistake on my part to assume that. A month later, we organized a dinner at an exclusive downtown restaurant for both families to officially meet before the wedding. I made the reservation at one of those places where you need to book 2 months in advance and where the tasting menu costs $200 per person. There were 12 of us in total: Elena, Isabel, Adrian, Adrian's parents, Margaret and Richard, some of Adrian's siblings, Colin with his new girlfriend, and me. The bill was going to be mine, obviously. Everyone knew it. No one even pretended to offer to split the cost. The dinner started out fine. Everyone was polite, pleasant conversation about the wedding, about Isabel and Adrian's future plans. Margaret and Richard were nice people, clearly well off, but not snobbish. They talked normally. Colin was there with his girlfriend, a woman about 15 years younger than him, and he was acting like the father of the year, telling anecdotes from when Isabel was little that he probably did not even remember correctly, because he was not there to experience them. I stayed quiet most of the time, sipping my wine, eating my $200 meal, just observing. And then Isabel stood up to make a toast. She looked beautiful, I must admit. All excited with her champagne glass in her hand, she started by thanking Adrian for being her person, Adrian's parents for welcoming her into their family, and Elena for being the best mom in the world. Then she turned to Colin and said, "And I want to give a special thanks to my dad, Colin, who has been my rock my entire life, and who will be walking me down the aisle on the most important day of my life. My rock." Her exact words were "my rock." The guy who saw her twice a year was her rock. And me, the one who had paid for her entire education, her car, her college, this dinner, the wedding. I did not even deserve a mention. Everyone raised their glasses, said cheers, drank their champagne, and I just sat there with my glass in my hand, not lifting it. Elena looked at me like, "Please, do not make a scene." And I just smiled. That fake smile you put on when you are boiling inside, but do not want to explode. I let everyone finish their drinks, and then I stood up. Everyone went quiet. I said, "Before we order dessert, I would like to make an announcement." You could feel the tension in the room immediately. Elena was looking at me in a panic. Isabel was confused. I said, "I have listened to everything that has been said tonight, and I think it is wonderful that Colin is going to walk Isabel down the aisle. I am honestly thrilled for you both. And since he is going to have that honor, it only makes sense that he also takes care of paying for the wedding. So, Colin, the bill for this dinner and all the wedding expenses are yours. Congratulations." The silence that followed was awkward on a level I cannot even describe. Colin was staring at me with his mouth open. Isabel had turned pale. Elena tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Margaret and Richard exchanged glances like, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Adrian was frozen. I placed my napkin on the table. I told the waiter that anything else they ordered should be charged to Mr. Bennett, pointing at Colin, and I walked out of the restaurant. I got in my car and drove home. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel, and I felt like I was going to throw up, but I also felt strangely liberated. You know what I mean? Elena arrived about 2 hours later, furious. She stormed into the house screaming, telling me how dare I humiliate her like that in front of Adrian's family, that I was selfish, that I was ruining Isabel's wedding because of my hurt pride. I told her, "Elena, I spent 17 years supporting your daughter. I paid for every single thing she has needed since she was 9 years old. I bought her a $45,000 car. I paid for her entire college education, and she just publicly said that her father, her rock, is a man who has done absolutely nothing for her. And I am the selfish one." She started crying, saying that I knew from the beginning that Colin was the biological father, that no one ever forced me to pay for anything, that I did it because I wanted to. And she was right. Technically, Nobody forced me. But that does not mean I did not expect a minimum of recognition or gratitude after so much time and so much money. We slept in separate rooms that night, and the next day, I started making calls. I called the Vineyard venue and canceled the reservation. I lost the $5,000 deposit, but I did not care. I called the caterer and canceled, the florist and canceled, the band and canceled, the photographer, the videographer, the chair and table rental company, the bartender, everyone. Every vendor we had hired and that I was going to pay for received a call from me canceling their services. Some of them asked questions. I simply told them there had been a change of plans and not to worry about the deposits that would be lost. After that, I went to the bank and moved all the money from our joint account to a personal account I opened that same day. It was about $180,000, years of savings that were technically mine because I was the one who had earned them. Elena never worked a single day during our relationship. Isabel's Mercedes was registered in my name, so I hired a tow truck, had it brought to my house, and that same afternoon I put it up for sale online. I sold it 3 days later for $40,000 to a used car dealer who came, checked it out, and paid me on the spot. All legal, all above board. The car was in my name, and I could do whatever I wanted with it. Isabel started sending me messages, like 50 messages in 2 days, telling me how I could do this to her, that I was ruining her life, that she had always loved me like a father, and to please reconsider. I replied only once. I said, "Isabel, if you loved me like a father, you had a very strange way of showing it." I did not answer any of her messages after that. Elena confronted me again, calmer this time, but just as upset. She told me I was acting like a child, that this was ridiculous, that Colin could not even afford the wedding because he did not have that kind of money. I said, "Not my problem. If Isabel wants him to walk her down the aisle, then he can find a way to pay for that privilege." Elena accused me of being vengeful, of not really loving Isabel, of having counted every penny I spent on her all these years expecting something in return. And that is when I got really angry. I yelled at her that it was not about the money. It was about basic respect, about recognition, about not being treated like a ghost after I had given everything for them for almost 2 decades. Colin called me too, which was surreal. He said, "Look, Daniel, I know things got out of hand, but do you not think you are overreacting a bit? It is just a wedding, let it go." I told him, "Colin, you have no idea what it means to raise a child day in and day out, year after year, so do not you come talking to me about letting things go." He got upset. He told me I was not Isabel's real father and that I needed to accept that. I hung up on him. Isabel came to the house. Elena let her in with her key, and I found her in the living room crying when I got home from work. I sat down across from her and said nothing, just waited. She started talking, saying that she knew I had done a lot for her, that she was grateful, that she did not mean to hurt me. I asked her, "Then why did you do it? Why did you exclude me from everything? Why is Colin the one walking you down the aisle when I was the one who took you to your first day of school, to your games, to college?" She said that Colin is her biological dad and always will be, that she could not change that she did not want to hurt him by excluding him from her wedding. I said, "But hurting me was okay?" She did not know what to say. She left crying. A week later, Elena came with a handwritten letter from Isabel, one of those long, multi-page letters where they apologize and explain everything they were feeling. I read it. It basically said that she understood why I was hurt, that she should have included me more in the planning, that she should have acknowledged me in her toast, that she made a mistake. But nowhere in that 3-page letter did it say that Colin would not be walking her down the aisle, or that she would change the invitations to include me, or that she truly understood the magnitude of what she had done. It was a superficial apology just to get me to open my checkbook again. I told Elena the answer was no, that I was not going to pay for the wedding, that my decisions were final. She then asked what would happen to us, to our relationship. I told her honestly that I did not know, that I needed time to think. 2 more weeks passed. The wedding date was approaching, and apparently, Adrian and his parents refused to cover the full costs of the wedding. They offered to pay their share, but not the whole thing, which was reasonable, considering the bride's family traditionally pays for most of it. Without a venue, without vendors, without money, the wedding was officially canceled about 6 weeks ago. Isabel sent me one last message saying she hoped I was happy for ruining the most important day of her life. I did not reply. Elena told me she was leaving, that she could not be with someone who had done that to her daughter. I told her that was fine, that it was for the best for both of us. We started the divorce proceedings last week. We have a prenuptial agreement that we signed when we moved in together years ago, which basically states that we each keep what we brought into the relationship, so she will not get any of my money or my property. She moved into a small apartment that a friend is renting to her. I have blocked them all, Elena, Isabel, and Colin. I changed the locks on the house and basically started over from scratch. Some friends have told me I went too far, that I was too harsh, that at the end of the day, Isabel is young and made a mistake. Others tell me I did the right thing by setting boundaries, that no one should allow themselves to be treated like that, no matter how much time they have invested in a relationship. Honestly, I do not know who is right, if anyone is. Sometimes I wonder if I should have handled things differently, if I should have spoken with Isabel more calmly before canceling everything, if I should have given her a chance to truly fix it. But then I remember her face in that restaurant while her mom and I were arguing about the invitations, staring at her phone without saying a word, and I remember that toast where she completely erased me from her life in front of everyone, and the rage comes back. It is not even about the money at the end of the day. It is about being seen, about being valued, about not being treated like a disposable resource after giving so much of yourself. The other day I was cleaning out a closet and found a photo of Isabel when she was about 12. We were at the beach. She was building a sandcastle and I was helping her, both of us smiling. Elena took that picture. I stared at it for about 10 minutes, trying to remember how I felt that day, and I could only think about how different everything was then. Or maybe it was not different, and I just did not want to see it. I do not know. I put it in a box with other things from those years and closed the closet. I guess what I learned from all this, if I learned anything, is that you can give people your all, your time, your money, your energy, your love, and still not be enough for them. And that sometimes the only way to get your dignity back is to walk away, even if it hurts, even if everyone tells you you are wrong. I do not know if Elena or Isabel will ever truly understand why I did what I did. Probably not. I will probably always be the villain in their story, the guy who ruined the wedding out of pride. And honestly, I can live with that. What I could not live with was continuing to be invisible in my own family. Comment. Thank you for exploring this difficult story with me. It is a powerful reminder that our value is not up for negotiation. Setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness. It is a profound act of self-respect. It is simply about teaching others how you deserve to be treated. True kindness must always extend to yourself as well. Sometimes, the most courageous choice is not to fight harder, but to choose your own peace. Healing truly begins when we affirm that our own well-being is non-negotiable. Ultimately, we are each responsible for the love and respect we accept into our lives. I hope you always remember to honor your own contributions and your own story. Please take care of yourselves, and know that you are worthy of being seen. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.